house with Dr. Wendy Dearborn, and today we are going to be talking about quinoa. That's it, guys. Quinoa. Spelled Quinoa, and it's not pronounced quinoa. That's the phonetic pronunciation. It is pronounced quinoa, which is actually spelled K-E-E-N dash or hyphen W-A-H, quinoa. Now, quinoa is an absolutely wonderful, it's actually been a really wonderful addition to our family at any rate. And it's a good alternative to rice, but we're gonna get to that. Quinoa has a very rich and ancient history. It has a very rich and ancient history with the Aztec civilization, you know, the Mayas and the Incas, and really the South American region. Now, quinoa, 80% of the quinoa that we actually consume in today's world comes from Bolivia and Peru. They're the biggest producers and exporters of quinoa. Now, quinoa is called a pseudo grain or a pseudo cereal because in reality, quinoa, as you can see it here, is a seed. It's a tiny little seed, but it acts like rice. It can act like, I don't know, like oats. It's a pseudo. It's kind of pretend, which is pseudo. It pretends, or faux. It's kind of fake. It fakes it out. It pretends like. Now, quinoa has a very, very low glycemic index. And before I get to that, let me just say this. Quinoa is something that actually can be turned into many, many, many different products. Many different products, okay? And where I was going with this is it has a really low glycemic index. And what this means is that you can eat quinoa and it won't have your blood sugar level spiking, or better yet, it will assist you and support you in how your insulin is released into your blood, the blood sugar, how it's released. So you won't become hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic. So you won't have these peaks and these crashes. You know, like when you eat, I don't know if you eat, I don't know, McDonald's, or you eat a heavy lunch. Sometimes this is why you can feel really sleepy. You might feel good after you eat it, and by the time you get back to your office, you're like, you're gone, okay? You've crashed. It's high and low. And when you eat foods like quinoa, it actually prevents that from happening. Okay, that being said, quinoa also is, as I've just said, an excellent source of protein. It's also gluten-free. So for people who have celiac disease, which is really a sensitivity to wheat and glutens, I'm going to say glutens on point for the whole thing, but particularly wheat glutens. So quinoa has a very, very low glycemic index, and it's very, very, if I didn't say it already, high in protein. And this is why some people call it a superfood. And guys, you know me, I don't get all into some of the scientific data. I'm really and truly about how you respond to it, how it works for you. Although I'm well aware of the data, but I'm about how it responds to and for you. So again, quinoa, low gluten. So for people like myself who have shifted away from having gluten in their diet based on skin reactions that I was having, this is an excellent, a whole food, plant-based diet, and who are worried about protein. Well, as I said before, quinoa are these wonderful little seeds. They're not grains, it's a seed, because it will sprout. Actually, if you put this in water and you soak it, you'll see these little curly white things inside, and it's the quinoa sprouting. So quinoa can actually be turned into many different products. It can be ground, get a spoon here, it can be ground into it can be ground into flour. Okay, it can be ground into flour. And this can be used, I use this to make cakes. I use the flour to make cakes. I use the flour to make pizza. I use quinoa as part of my gluten-free flour mix. And that's something that I'm going to be teaching you. I'm going to be showing you my gluten-free flour mix. And as a result, because quinoa can be ground into flour and it's so versatile, you can get things like, this is upside down. Is that the right way up? You can get things like linguine. Is that the right way up? Yeah, quinoa linguine. I believe this is a rotelli. Hopefully I'm saying this right. Quinoa rotelli, which is pasta. And that's the one here. Okay, oops, the one that got away. And that's quinoa pasta. You can get quinoa linguine. There are so many, what's that, lasagna. There are so many things that you can do with this wonderful super seed. And for me, it truly is an alternative to rice. I eat rice only occasionally now. And you know, sometimes my husband and myself would eat and would have rice. You know, I might have, you know, curried pumpkin and rice or something. And you know, you eat the rice and you feel like, right? But when you eat the quinoa, it doesn't do that same, doesn't give you that same sort of feeling. And I feel it's because it's so high in protein, and that the actual, how it reacts on the body and the insulin has a huge interplay for me in that, in how you feel. So anyway, quinoa actually comes in 3 color varieties. And at this juncture, I only have one, which is the white one. This is white quinoa. And this one is the one that's, this is the one that's most common. That's the one that's most common. It also comes in the red variety, of which I actually thought I had red quinoa here in the house. I just can't happen to find it. And of course it comes in black. Very much like rice. You know, rice comes in, well, they all cook up fluffy. And we're going to cook a pot because we're actually going to make a salad today. Woohoo! But they cook up fluffy. The white one cooks up fluffy, and you'll see that. The red one, it doesn't kind of snap and open the same way as the white quinoa does. And it's more crunchy. And it has more of a nutty flavor. And of course, the black quinoa for me acts very much like the white quinoa. And it opens and it fluffs out. And while it has that same kind of nutty crunch, it's not as intense as the red one. So okay guys, that being said, quinoa, white quinoa, which is what we're going to be cooking today. White quinoa, you will hear all different things of, no, you'll hear all different ratios of water to quinoa. You cook it like rice. It cooks like rice, okay? So for me, I use 1 cup of quinoa to 1 cup and maybe a little bit of water, maybe 1 cup and a tablespoon of water. For the red quinoa, you need 1 cup of red quinoa to 1 1/4 cups of water, maybe a tablespoon more. And then for the black quinoa, you need 1 cup of black quinoa to 1 1/4 and 2 tablespoons of water. And it has to be actually cooked in a pot, just like rice, with a tight fitting lid. The cooking time varies. I cook mine like how I cook my rice. I am a basmati girl all the way along the line. So basmati rice, when I was eating it, and occasionally we still do, it takes about 30 minutes for it to cook right. And so therefore, I cook my quinoa anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes and it's fine. Okay, however, you will see varying time frames. So guys, you need to find out what works for you. So it's anywhere from 20 minutes, and then you leave it to rest in the pot. You fluff it up, leave it to rest in the pot for another 5 to 7 minutes. Or like I do, I cook mine for 25. I leave it to rest for about 5 minutes, and we're done. We can move along. We can then utilize it for whatever we need to utilize it for. So we're going to go through that. The one thing that I would actually like to mention, two things actually. You can actually cook quinoa in a rice cooker. Yay! For all those who say, I can't cook rice because it comes out like rice pudding. You can use your rice cooker. And you'd actually use it on the setting that you would for cooking white rice. And you follow the manufacturer's instructions. And that being said, if you find out based on following the manufacturer's instructions that it wasn't enough water or too little water, then you adjust accordingly. But you actually use the white rice setting. And the other thing I would say is, once it's cooked, make sure you open it, you fluff it, and make sure that it's okay, and then see what your rice cooker does about keeping it warm. Okay, different rice cookers do different things, and so if you want to keep it warm, just play that by ear. So that's the other thing. Right, washing your quinoa. Washing your quinoa properly is imperative. It's imperative that you wash your quinoa and you wash it thoroughly. I don't know how else to stress that other than wash the quinoa. Okay? Wash it. You gotta wash it. Okay? You gotta wash it. No, I'm being really serious, guys. You need to wash it. And the reason why it needs to be washed is because quinoa comes with nature's finest ingredient. It's like an oil-like substance called saponins. Saponins. And saponins, like I just said, are an oil-like substance that are naturally occurring. Actually, if I don't miss my guess, they are phytoestrols, which means photo, which is plant, estrols, steroids. And so what this does is it coats the outside of the seeds and it protects the seeds. It's an anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, all these things, so that the seed can protect itself from outside marauding invaders that will really either eat the plant or kill the plant or kill the seed. Let's put it that way. And so therefore, even though you can purchase quinoa that has been thoroughly washed, you have to wash the quinoa yourself to really rinse that oil-like substance off. Otherwise, your quinoa will be bitter. And this is what has happened to a lot of people. They've actually just sort of dumped the quinoa in the pot and done whatever they were doing, and they've tasted it and they're like, oh, this is bitter, I really don't like that. So guys, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to wash the quinoa and we're going to cook the quinoa, and then we are going to make, woohoo, a quinoa salad with my vinaigrette dressing with the secret ingredient, guys. I'm giving it up on YouTube to you, my secret ingredient. We're going to be rinsing our quinoa, okay? We're going to rinse our quinoa, and as I said, it's really important to rinse it well. So I have this bowl because I want to be able to make sure that the water runs clear. And for anybody who back in the day, and I mean back in the day, used to eat rice, and believe me, rice was a staple in our household, we had to pick the rice and you had to wash the rice so it ran clear. So make sure that you rinse your quinoa really, really well. And you rinse it until your water, you can either use chicken stock, vegetable broth, beef broth, water. You can use whatever you want, because quinoa is a little bit like soy. It can take on the flavors of what you were doing, what you're cooking with, and then it kind of infuses it with its own kind of nutty kind of flavor. So that's what I like about quinoa. But because I'm actually making this quinoa salad, I'm electing just to use, because I had 2 cups of quinoa, actually it was just over 2 cups of quinoa. And so I have, how much water do I have here? I have 2 3/4 cups of water, or 2 2/3 cups of water, which will be enough. Okay, all right, so that's my water. And I'm actually going to add some, what have I got here? Himalayan salt to the process. All right, and that was maybe about 1/4 teaspoon. I actually find Himalayan salt to be very, very salty. I actually find it to be very, very salty. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my pot and we're going to bring it to a boil. And once it's come to a boil, actually I'm going to stir it. Once it comes to a boil, we will then turn him down and simmer. And I'm going to simmer mine for about 25 minutes. I'm going to simmer mine for about 25 minutes.